I'm sharing my screen. Please someone confirm me that like you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see that.
Perfect. So this is a project which we have created in the UiPath Studio in the last session, like by taking the test automation project template, and we have created this. And we covered bit of the panels. We didn't cover all the panels. Not even I can say we haven't even started it properly. So we covered something on the project uh, panel. In the project panel, whatever the workflows which we are creating or the test cases which we are creating will be falling under this project panel. And not only that, even the dependencies which requires dependency is nothing but the libraries which actually required for us to automate our workflows or the test cases. So those will be falling under this. And along with this, like we can even organize into the folders, like by creating a folder to have a proper structuring of your project. And if you see in the project panel, we can see the dependencies. One second. Yeah, sorry. So in this, like there are few more things like which is services and entities. These two are related to a different kind of a products altogether. Services is not a product. Services is something that like when you are dealing with an APIs, when you do for an API testing, you can directly import the Postman collection. Generally, in traditional way of automation testing, the API testing is more done with the help of the Postman. So we will be creating some Postman collections, and then from there we will be doing the API testing. So that collection we can directly import here. And also there is something called as a Swagger definition. Swagger definition is nothing but it's a kind of a documentation and testing uh, tool that like where we can test it with the APIs, test or play with the APIs. So that also can be directly imported, and those will be directly available for us, all the methods for a drag and drop. So that actually comes under the services, which we are going to see when we are dealing with the API testing as part of our curriculum going further. So I'm just giving a heads up that like what actually the services, but uh, we will be covering it as part of our course. And services not only here, like from here we can add the new service, and also we have on the ribbon as well the new service. So either of these two places we can configure our services. And there is another thing called as an entities. So the entities you can see that like under the project folder and also in the design ribbon as well. And right click and we can, so here it is not right clicking, but here from the manage entities, if you click on the manage entities, you can configure the entities. So what actually the entities in UiPath? So when we are dealing with the data, uh, in the stable structure, we will be using Excels and the databases and all these things, right? In the similar way, UiPath is having data services, which is nothing but it's a table structure where we can store our data in the UiPath cloud automation platform, and that product is called as a data service. And those data services can be directly imported here and can be leveraged for our part of our automations to consume the data. And we are going to use these data services as part of our data driven testing, because the data driven testing, we have three different options in UiPath. One is to deal with the Excel data, and the other is with the data services, and the other is with the UiPath test data queues. So we will see all these three, how we are going to perform the data driven testing. So before that, I'll just show you a glance on how the data services looks like. So if I go to the UiPath cloud platform, and here I can see under the more, data service. And if I open this, we can create our entities here. And if I go to the UI bank application test data, I can see these are the different columns. And if I go to the data, I can see what is the different data is. It's kind of a columns and rows structure, which is a table. And we can have any number of the columns and also the rows. So from here, we can manage our data, whatever is required for us. So this is how the entities or the data services will help us to store our data. Okay. So I'm coming back to the UiPath Studio. This is more on the project. And there is one more folder if you see here, templates. The templates is nothing but we can define our templates as part of our workflow automation. So we can create our workflows or the test cases directly from the template so that like, so let us assume that you have some structure which is common for every workflow, whatever we are going to build, or every test case, whatever we are going to build. In that case, we can just define this template. And when we are creating a new workflow or new test case, then we can directly take it from that template. Anyhow, like we are going to see this also when we are going for the test automation framework. So there we are going to leverage these templates. So all these things, I'm just giving you a very high level understanding of what actually these are meant for. And we will see how they work going further as part of our sessions. So this is more on the project panel. And before coming to the activities panel, I'll just simply show you that like manage packages. See, this manage packages is nothing but whatever the dependency libraries are required. So we can install it from this manage packages. So you can click on this and you can see that like already these two are available as part of our dependencies. And in case if you want to install any more dependencies, so we can click on all packages or specific if you want to have any of these configured sources. So these sources can be configured from these settings. So it can be a URL or it can be a local folder or it can be a downloads folder, whatever. We can configure them. Like you can add one more and you can give the name and you can just give the URL or the folder. So like this, we can configure our sources. So as of now, I have configured a lot of sources, but by default, what you will be having is, so let me uncheck all the user defined. So these two also will be there. And the local will be by default there. So you cannot disable this orchestrated tenant and host because this actually requires you to have, because by default, whatever UiPath official packages will be part of these two. And also this official also, whatever the UiPath official packages, you will be having it. And when it comes to the marketplace, this is something that like different community people or the other developers will be building and deploying into this marketplace and we can consume them. So I can go to the all packages and I can search with the package whatever is required for me. And let us assume that I don't know what actually the package name. Okay. So I want to do some UI automations. So I can simply say UI automation. Then it give me all the list of activities which are there for with the keyword of UI automation. And I want to have the UiPath dot UI automation dot activities because these are the official packages for the UI automation. If you see the other two, these are something related to Salesforce and NetSuite, which are not required. I just need to do only the UI automation. So we can just select it, click on install and click on save. So these activities will be installed on our project. So these dependencies, whatever we are installing is project to project specific. So if we install in this project, these will be available only inside of this project, right? So once we install them, whatever the activities, so we call it as an activities here, which means like when we do a drag and drop or the activities, we are going to do the drag and drop. So these activities will be getting reflected back into the activities panel. So once this download and install is done, we will see like how these will be looking at activities. So now the dependencies got added. So let me go to the project folder. Previously, we could able to see only two, system.activities and testing.activities. Now your UI automation activities also got included as part of the dependencies. Now if I go to the activities, so I can see a lot of activities which actually can be dragged and dropped into our workflows. And let me go here. Yeah, here. Instead of category, right, I'll just enable the package. So based on the package wise, these will be grouped. And we can have either package wise or the category wise. And if you see, just now we installed UiPath.UI So if I expand, all the UI related activities are available. So just I'll open this test case just to show you that like how actually this works. So let us assume that you want to click on something, just drag and drop this click. So this is how it works. We just need to identify on some application. That's it. So first we just need to identify this. And from here, we can identify it, whatever the element. So anyhow, like we are going to see this when we deal with the UI automation and the page object models. So this is how the activities panel will work. Whatever the packages we are installing, those activities will be getting reflected back into this. And let me go back to the manage packages, and I'll uninstall this UI automations and click on save. And now this UI automation.activities got disappeared. So based on whatever the packages we are installing, only those will be available for us to use it. So these are the installed, and we also have what are the available also. And let us assume that I'll go here. So I haven't installed anything related to the UI automation, right? So if I come here, UiPath UI automation activities, so I can see a lot of activities. So what I will do is I'll just simply use the drag and drop of this click activity. Now it will be getting installed. So even if we are not installing it manually, and if we are just dragging and dropping from the available, this will be automatically get installed. So this is the latest, in the latest versions they gave in that way, but previously we need to install it directly from the managed packages. So this is how this works. So I'm just deleting it. This is more on the activities panel. And in terms of the snippets, I don't want to use these snippets and I never used it. So better we can ignore this because no one will be using, we will not be using much on the snippets. Snippets is kind of usable when you go for the reusability. But later, we got a lot of different ways of utilizing these reusabilities. So previously, we doesn't have the custom library building from the drag and drop and publishing it to the orchestrator and using it. And we don't have the UI libraries. Like there are a lot of library packages which came later stage. And at that time, we used to use the snippets, but now we have different ways to use the reusabilities across multiple processes or projects across all the organization. So in that case, this snippets no one is using as of now. So we can completely ignore this panel and not required at all. And the properties panel is simple that like we can just see the properties of each and every activity what we have. So this is on the sequence level. So if I just rename this top level, this will be automatically renamed. So these are the properties. Like in case if I go with any other activity, let us assume that I take the log message. So if I go to the properties, all the properties are visible here. So that's the reason for which we are not having anything here. But if I go to a click activity, for instance, if I go to the properties, I can see all the properties which are part of this activity. So the properties is just to define the behavior of the activities apart from the default configuration, what it is actually having. And there will be some mandatory inputs which we may need to give for the activity properties. And there are some default and we can tune them based on our requirement and based on the use case and based on the target applications we are dealing with. So that's how the properties will work. So it's more of simple that like when we are dealing with any functions or the methods, right? So we will be passing some arguments, right, as an input. So these properties will behave in that way only. And data manager we discussed in the previous session that like what all we have and all. So these are mostly, if you see, right, a lot of things are already available in other scenarios. So if you come here, namespaces, right? So you can see that in the imports. And the data manager arguments, you can see it from the arguments. Data manager variables, you can see it from here. But here in the data manager, you can create a global variable. which is accessible across the project level. But here the variables are only to the specific workflow what we are building. Okay. The connections is nothing but related to the integration services, which I don't think it's really required now because it's completely a different uh, product altogether, and we can even connect that and we can see that activities. So for now, I think this is not much required, but even we can see this when we are doing the real-time project, how actually these works. And the queues are related to the process automation, not to the test automation. So it's an invalid for us. And the assets which we are going to use for sure, which is nothing but storing for the variables which are prone to change in between as well. So if you see this credentials to log into any application, this may change from the environment to environment or when we are dealing with, right? So in such scenarios, we can store in the assets. See, these assets and the queues, right? These are more of uh, when you're dealing with the process automations, not with the test automations. The usage of the assets will be limited when you are dealing with the test automation, and the queues actually will not help us to in the test automation. Rather, we will use the test data queues. Queues is nothing but like you'll be having a collection of your data which needs to be processed. Like let us take an example that you need to fill a form and where you need to fill first name, last name, email ID, and all these details, right? Those we will be storing in the queues in the UiPath orchestrator layer just to have a multi execution, parallel execution concept. So when you want to execute the same process on two different machines, right, then there should not be any duplicate process. To avoid that, we will be using these queues. Okay, this is more on the data manager. Object repository. See, object repository is nothing but when you are dealing with any UI automations, right? Any web application or a desktop application, you need to deal with each and every element on the whatever the required elements on the application, right? Those applications we are going to capture and we will be storing under the object repository. If I expand this, this is the screen which I have just created. We will see like how hierarchy will look like and how we are going to create. These are just, we are storing all the UI elements into this UI object. Okay, so that's how this object repository works. And if you see, when I drag and drop this click activity, this is saying that drag and drop the screen from the object repository. So from the object repository directly, we can just use this and drag and drop these activity into these activities so that like this can be easily configured. So now it could able to see how it looks like. And let me create an element. So you can directly use the capture. So this everything we will do in detail, but I just want to show you how it actually works. So I'm just capturing one element. Save. Save. Just remove other. Save. And now I have one element here. I'll just simply drag and drop. So this can go and click on this element. So that's how this object repository will help us. So when you are building multiple workflows, right? And you might be using this element multiple places. Let us assume that this target element is got changed. So this element might got changed a bit in the back end or in the front end, right? So in that case, it's not necessary to go to each and every workflows because when you're dealing, right, you'll be building hundreds of test cases. We cannot go to each and every test case and see like where I need to update. So we can just simply update from here and that will be automatically reflected. So let us see this we have, right, overview. Let me go to click on edit. Edit. And I'll go with data. Instead of overview, right? I'll go with data. Click on console. Click on save. As soon as I saved this, it changed its target. So that is the advantage of having this object repository, and this will help you only in terms of the UI automations. And we will go in deep dive like how this object repository can be built and how we can maintain the versions and how we can leverage them as part of our automations. Outline is nothing but like what are the different activities we have inside of this workflow. So if I go here and if I just drag and drop one more activity and add one more activity, and if I go to the outline, I can see these are the activities. So this is the sequence I have. Inside of this, I have all these. And let me drag and drop one more activity, which is a sequence. And this is like kind of a sequence inside of the sequence. And I'll put this right text file inside of this. If I go to the outline, I can see that, see on the top level, I have assign, sequence and comment. If I expand the sequence, I have one more, which is right line. So we can see the structure of our workflow, how it looks like in the outline panel. This is more on the outline panel. Let me go to the test explorer. See, this test explorer actually will help you when you are dealing with only the test automation. This is nowhere concerned with the process automation. And whatever the test cases which we are building, we can see all these test cases under this particular panel, and we can execute from here either by running all or selecting and all these things, debugging, and we can do the right click and we can even run simply single also. So we can do a lot of test automation related activities from this test explorer, and we can see the results also, like how the test executions are process like getting success or failures. So the result of the test cases, test executions, everything we can see here, and whatever we execute here, we can publish them to the test manager as well to see how these are working. And anyhow, like whatever the test cases we are building, we are going to run from here only. So each and everything, whatever these icons looks like, represent like how many are got passed, how many are got failed, and how many are not executed, and all these things we can see. So simply if I click on this and click on run, so it's an empty, right? It will run and you will get it passed for sure. So it says that like it has got passed. So this is how this test explorer works. And there is something called, this is a test results summarization, how many are passed and how many are, it's more on the assertions because we haven't kept any validations here. So we are getting 0 here. If I go to the description, so how, when you are dealing with UI automations, how many UI elements are tested properly? That coverage you will be getting here. Okay. So this is more on the test explorer. Autopilot. So whenever you have a doubt, you can just simply search on the documentation or ask any questions here itself, and you will get the update on this. And you can even generate your code also by clicking on this. So this we will not, I doesn't want you guys to start with this now, because if you are starting with autopilot, then we will not be covering the actual, or we will not be knowing the actual things, whatever is there, like in the conceptual wise. So that's the reason for which in the curriculum also I kept it at a very last. So these are more about the panels. And also we have the output panel where the execution summary we can see, execution traces, logs, and everything we can see. And the breakpoints are like when you're going in the debug mode, under the debug, we can put the breakpoints on different activities. So let me drag and drop one activity and I'm putting a breakpoint here. And if I go to the breakpoints and bit marks, so I can see that there is a breakpoint here. So when you are dealing on the project level, you might be having a lot of breakpoints. So we can see it from here, like where we kept the breakpoints. And even we can keep the settings that like on which condition this breakpoint should be enabled and all these things. So we will not go much detail into this because we will not be using much of these features in our automation or like in test automation. Very less scenarios, like we just enable the breakpoint and we will see, but we will not go detailed into these settings. But I'm just giving you a heads up that like you can even have the additional settings also captured here. So if you give a condition that like based on some variable value is equal to this, then only hold on this. Or if it is not equal to or required, then only hold on it. So when you are dealing with multiple breakpoints and all, right, in that scenarios, we will be having these conditions to avoid the latency and increase the speed of our debugging. And we can just remove the debug all the breakpoints at the one go. Error list in case if any errors are there. So this is having a validation error that like we haven't given any values. So all these validation errors, we can see it here from the error list. So these are the different panels we have in our UiPath. So any questions on any of these panels? Every panel we are going to use, except more on the data manager. We will not cover much on the data manager when we are using, because almost everything else is already available in some or the other places. So we will actually go there, but you have an option here also. That's what I just want to give you an update. But rest every panel we are going to touch each and everything. We will not cover the outline because this is just to view it. It's not to use. So any questions on any of these panels, guys?
Can you explain properties again?
So properties is nothing but like we will be using it for the configuration purpose. So whenever we have any of the activities or something, right? So if I take the right line, in the properties, we don't have anything because directly you have the property here itself, like some input which you need to give, right? If I take uh, a click activity, anything related to the UI, right? You'll be having a lot of properties. So here, if you see, right, a lot of properties you have. So each and every activity will have a different properties. So if I go to the activities and if I use verify, properties. So I have these inputs, like this is just nothing but the configuration towards the activities, whatever we are using. What are the configurations we want to keep and how we want that activity to behave. Okay.
So can we modify this? Like here we see input, take screenshot field. So we can enter
Yeah,
true
we
false
can, we
as per
can,
our
we
need.
can,
Okay.
whatever we want to have, we can change that.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyhow, like you'll get to familiar with this, like when we are doing the automations. But I'm just giving you an explanation that like this are the things like which actually help us to explain the behavior of how these activities works.
Okay. Yeah.
Any questions on these guys till now?
No, no from my end.
Sorry?
No, I don't have any question from my end.
Okay, cool. And now we will see like how we can have this as part of the version control. Okay. So to go for that, anyhow, like we are going step by step for our automations. And one of the major thing, what we need to know is the source control or version control, we say, right? Repository. So there are two options to do it, right? Here, see this clone checkout, like if you want to open something from the repository. And I want to add this to the repository, right? So in the project, I can come here, right click, add to source control. So I can go to the Git. So now what I will do is I'll just create a Git repository. GitHub, we can do it for free, right? So you can just click on sign up and you give whatever the details are required and you can go for it. So I'm just directly signing in. So I have a lot of repositories, but I'll create a new repository. So I'll go for UI bank web application testing. Okay. And I'll make it public for now. Click on create. So this is my repository and this is going to be my endpoint. So I'll come here. I'll come to this. I'll create a new project. Okay. With the proper name and all. So test automation project. Application testing. Test automation project. to test functionalities of your bank application. Click on create. So I have created a proper project and I don't want this test case to be there because it's an empty test case with a generic name. So I'm deleting it. Click on delete. So now this is my project. Now I want to add this to Git version control, Git init. Second. Select the folder and now we got all the things whatever is available and we need to give the commit message like whatever the changes we are doing. This is the initial commit, right? We just created the project. Whatever the changes we are doing, we just need to update it. So the project initiated with empty test cases. Click on commit and push. Now we need to configure our repository. Here is our repository. I'm just copying this. And I can say name, I'll just give the same name. I don't want to give a different name. Click on add. Click on save. Now we need to say like we can give the username or password or we can directly log in. So it depends on the organization, whatever the organization is providing. So those we will be configuring it. So now I'll go with the sign in because it's easy for me now. But you can go with even the other details as well, like how the organization is given. But we need to authorize this UiPath from the settings of the Git.
This is
Without
little
that, we
bit
cannot do it.
confusing for me. Sorry, Patru. Actually,
Sorry.
little bit this is little bit confusing for me.
Hmm.
So,
So we are not doing much. What we are trying
okay.
to do is we are just trying to add this to the version control or the repository.
Okay. You just downloaded from the Google that GitHub. So that one you just doing, I mean, you are adding from UiPath Studio. Am I right?
No, we created the Git repository on the GitHub, and then we are just adding our local project to this particular repository.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. If you see here, we don't have anything. Okay. Now I just configured my Git repository to my UiPath. Now I'm just clicking on OK. Now it is pushing all the changes. Now if I refresh this page, I can see my project here. So what actually this is going to do or help me is even if my system crashes, I'll still have this code.
Okay.
Okay. So that's how it works. Now, if you see here, this is connected to the Git repository of this particular project name. And if I go here, I can see that, yes, this is got connected to this particular project. So when we start doing this, right, you'll slowly get to know about like how we can handle this with the Git. Why I'm just giving you this is in majority of the automation testing or any automation, right? The Git is something that like a lot of people use it mandatorily.
Could you please explain that step again? I just missed out. I'm little bit confusing. What you did it for this Git, right? So
Yeah.
that is alone. Could you please repeat the step again if you
So
don't mind?
you are aware like how you can create the Git account, right?
No, no, I'm not aware of it.
So let me go in the incognito.
Yeah.
I can go to the GitHub, click on
Okay.
sign up.
Okay.
You can provide your Gmails and whatever is there
Okay.
and
Okay.
password, and
Okay.
you can create your username and click on continue. And you will be having a Git account created similar to this.
Okay. Got it.
And after here, you can come to the repositories and you can create a new repository by clicking on new. Okay.
Okay.
And you'll get an empty repository without having
Okay.
this code and all. And now here from here, right, under the project, if you right click, as of now, this is already connected, right? Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll create a sample project and a sample repository and do it again. Okay. So this is my first automation test project, right? I'll try to add this to the Git. Okay. This is my first test automation project. So I'll just copy this name. I'll use the same names. I can go to the repositories, click on create new. I'll just provide the repository name and click on create repository. Repositories got created. So I have this endpoint URL. This is the endpoint of my GitHub URL. I'll copy this. I'll go to the UiPath Studio. Here I have add to source control. So I can just simply say git init. And I'll select this particular project, click on select project. So it will help me out like to identify whatever the objects or the activity workflows or the folders, whatever I have. So those will be selected. If I want to exclude something, I can just simply uncheck it. So I want to add everything. So I checked everything. And in the commit message, whatever the changes we are doing, because just now it isn't, we just started. But every time we do the like commit to the repository is nothing but saving to the repository. So that like even my local system get crashes, I'll be having my code. So every day before we log out, what we do is we'll just directly push or commit so that my changes will be there in the Git repository. Got it?
Yeah.
So here I need to give what are the changes I'm giving. Initialized project. I'm just saying that project is initialized. And click on commit, either commit or push. So let me do the commit. Okay, commit is done. Now I need to push it. So now I'll come here. I can come here. I can simply click on push. Now it is asking in which repository you want to push, right? So I come here. This is my URL, the repository which I have created in the Git.
Okay.
I'll give this URL here. I need to give the project name, a remote project name, which is nothing but my first automation project. Correct?
Yeah.
I'll just put it here and I'll click on add. Now, when I click on save, it asks me for authentication. How do you want to authenticate to the Git? So we have different options. We can use the username password. So if I say username, password, click on OK. It's not allowing me because I might be typing a wrong password or wrong username. I think it's most of that only. So click on OK.
Okay.
Now it is pushing the changes. It pushed the changes to the Git. If I go back here, we just created and we don't have anything. Now let me refresh this. I can see all these objects are available here. Now, whatever the code which I have developed here, everything is visible here in my Git repository. And if I come back to this project, let me come to the test case. There is nothing here, right? As of now. And if I go here, if I go to the test case.jam, so this is a YAML, right? We cannot see it properly. So let me go to, okay, let me do one thing. Instead of changing anything here, I'll add one text file here, okay? Add file sample.txt. I just added one file here. Sample file added. Click on save. And I'm closing this. Now we made changes, right? If you see here, it is saying that there are changes. When you click on this, it will ask for the commit. Added a text file and sample text. Click on commit. So we have committed. Now we need to push it. If you see here, previously it is 0, but now here 1. So click on push. It is pushing the changes and it pushed it. And if I come back and if I refresh this, I can see the text file, sample.txt, and whatever the text what I have added. So we can save our project to the Git repository with the help of this integration. And if you remember, under the tools, we discussed about these plugins, right? Source control plugins. Did you remember in our studio tour, we we discussed on these repositories.
Yes.
Yeah. So whatever I make the changes here, that I can save it under the repository so that like even my system crashes, I will not be losing my code. And another advantage of this is when multiple people are working on the same project, they can work on this and they can push and then they can pull it back as well. And we will see like how we can do it in the collaborative mode as well. Okay. Still confusion?
No, no, actually.
Yeah. Cool. So this is the project which we have created, the UI automation, UI bank application testing. So which we are going to use as part of our uh, initial sessions. So this is more on the introductory part of whatever we uh, are supposed to do. And now we are good to start with UI automations. Correct. See, there are a lot of basic concepts that like variables, arguments, how we are going to create and all. But I want to explain them as part of our automation itself instead of taking it separately. Will that be okay?
Uh, can you please repeat that question?
So in terms of the variables and arguments, right? We will not be having a separate sessions for that. We will start building some automations and we'll see like how actually it is working instead of having a separate session for variables, different types and everything. Because the basics of the variables, I'm hoping that you are already aware of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So mostly we will start with the UI automation, the page object models. How do we understand the UI elements and everything? Okay. So
Okay.
we
Okay.
sorry.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So what we are going to discuss tomorrow is like what is selectors and how we are going to identify the UI elements on a screen and how the object repository hierarchy is going to be and how we are going to capture and different methods. We will not build any automations tomorrow. We focus more on understanding of different objects on the UI application and how do we capture those elements to an object repository. So that is going to be our focus in tomorrow's session. And we will not do any UI automation for tomorrow, which we will be doing it day after tomorrow, the UI automations after capturing all these objects. So hope that should be okay for everyone, right?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I'm taking a pause now. So I suggest everyone to cover yesterday's and today's concepts, like not yesterday, like previous video and this video before we start with the tomorrow's session. See, there are a lot of other things which I actually skipped intentionally, which are like the project settings and all. So, which I want to cover these project settings uh, after our sessions, because even if I explain all these things, it's very hard for anyone to understand unless if you know the concept of like what are the variables and activities and how actually these works and all. So that's the reason for which I'm actually skipping it. But there is one thing which I want to cover today. So UiPath is an RPA platform, which is robotic process automation platform, where we can build an end-to-end automations for the business processes, right? And the same studio we have, but it became an UiPath test automation platform as well with the same studio. So what additional things it actually added, right? So what actually the differentiator or like how the UiPath RPA tool becomes a test automation tool as well, right? The UiPath Test Explorer. This is the one thing which actually came into the picture. This is not available previously when it was being an RPA platform. And also there is one more activity package, which is UiPath.testing.activities. Okay. And we know that activities are whatever the activities we have, these are, we call it as activities just to have a drag and drop to perform some function or actions, right? Or to perform something like similar to the functions in C language or the methods in any object oriented programming language, right? Whatever the functionality we will be writing under the function or a method, that actually we call it as an activities in UI. So this testing dot activities and this test explorer, these two combined it to become an UiPath test automation platform as well to build the test automations. And initially, we don't have this object repository. We used to directly identify the element from the activity and we used to store it as part of its properties. After becoming a test automation platform, they introduced this object repository, which is adopted from the page object model in Selenium. So the page object model is nothing but creating the objects of the UI elements for the reusability. The same concept was taken into this and it was created as an object repository. So the object repository is actually got advanced with the help of the test automation platform of UiPath. And these activities, if you see, all these activities are related to the test automation only. Like this is something related to the test data queues, which is like kind of handling the test data for concurrent parallel processing and all. So we will be discussing about that. But mostly, if you see here, given name, last name, random date, random number, random string, random values. These are the activities which actually will help you to generate some random data for your testing purpose. It's kind of a synthetic data which can help you to use as part of your testing. And these verify activities, right? These verify activities actually is kind of assertions what we want to evaluate. So to evaluate the assertion, they brought in this verification activities. So these activities are part of your test or testing activities package. And these activities and this test explorer both combinedly made UiPath Studio from an RPA to RPA plus test automation. So because of these, this actually evolved into the test automation. So this is more on the UiPath Studio perspective of different panels and also like how we can integrate with the version control and repository. And every day, whatever we are going to do, we are going to check into the repository and you can even use it for your purpose as well. You can even download this code and you can refer to this code every day, whatever I'm going to do. Okay, so this is
Yeah.
more on this. Yeah, I think there is some
So
question.
the test manager, from which version onwards it came into practice?
Think 2020 version. It's a base version in 2020, I guess.
Okay.
20 or 21. I didn't remember it exactly, but it's around 20 or 21.
Okay.
But now it is evolved like anything. Previously, we don't have these many features.
Yeah, with going upgrading versions, they are changing, right?
A lot. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then tomorrow we will come back on the UI automation perspective, how we are going to do the UI automations.
Yeah, one more question is like